Okay, so let's begin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sustainable Whale and Dolphin Watching Tourism Network from the IORA, Indian Ocean Rim Association. We are pleased to welcome you to this webinar. My name is 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗶𝗃𝗶𝗄𝗏. I am a project officer from the Quietude team of the NGO 𝗀𝗲𝗁𝗃𝗃𝗃 Sea Turtles Study and Discovery Center in Réunion Island. I will moderate the meeting today. This video conference will last about 1 hour. The concept of its whale o'clock will enable you to stay informed on the network, learn more about technical topics related to the whale watching and dolphin watching tourism, and get new contacts from the region. The program of this video conference is for the first part, welcome remarks from Mrs. 𝗱𝗁𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, South Africa's Director of Academic, Science and Technology Cooperation and Tourism and Cultural Exchanges Priority Areas for IORA. Then Mr. 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗆𝗆, Diplomatic Advisor to the Prefecture of La Réunion Island and Regional Cooperation in the Indian Ocean, will present the role of France in the network. The second part, Mrs. Anne-Emmanuelle Land, Project Manager leading the Quietude team at 𝗀𝗲𝗁𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, based in Réunion Island, will present the network background, purpose, and the coordination work carried out by Réunion Island. And for the third part, our main speakers of the day, Mrs. 𝗱𝗶𝘃𝗶𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, Project Officer from the IWC, International Whaling Commission, who give us the honor to be present today. And she will present the subject, Striving for Sustainability, Whale Watching, and the International Whaling Commission. So if the IORA can begin with the welcome remarks.
Good morning, Dr. 𝗱𝗶𝘃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, Mr. Amar, Dr. 𝗰𝗁𝗶𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, distinguished IORA member states and dialogue partners, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this conference. Marine and coastal tourism, especially whale and dolphin watching, is globally one of the fastest growing tourism sectors. However, the increased access to the sensitive and fragile marine world has devastating impacts on marine ecosystems, and it has become imperative to sustainably manage this fragile resource. Since taking over as network coordinator of sustainable whale and dolphin watching, France, through the Center for the Study and Discovery of Sea Turtles, has worked tirelessly to revitalize this important network. It has continued to show exceptional leadership in engaging relevant IORA stakeholders and international partners, including the International Whaling Commission, to relaunch this network. The main objective of this network is to foster regional cooperation in sustainable whale and dolphin watching, tourism through the sharing of information, promotion of capacity building, and providing experts to access to expertise. The network's aim in the long term is to ensure the economic, social, and environmental sustainability of the whale and dolphin watching industry in the Indian Ocean region. I wish to congratulate all stakeholders for the contributions to the March 2044 edition of the newsletter. Valued contributors, we look forward to your continued support in this regard. The IORA welcomes this video conference, which covers 3 IORA priority areas: academic, science and technology, tourism and cultural exchanges, as well as the blue economy. More importantly, it is closely aligned to SDG Target 14, namely conserve and sustainably use the oceans, sea and marine resources for sustainable development. I wish to thank France and its partners, especially the Whaling Commission, for the tireless efforts to make this gathering possible. Distinguished delegates, your participation is appreciated, and let's use the next hour to freely engage and exchange ideas. Thank you.
And now I will leave the floor to Mr. Laurent Amat. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Director 𝗀𝗶𝗃𝗶𝗄𝗏 from IORA. Welcome to you all participants to this video conference. It gives me great pleasure to be part of this first event organized by France under the umbrella of IORA for this network for sustainable whale and dolphin watching. France is a new member of IORA. We joined in December 2020, and this is one of the first examples of initiatives that we take within the network. There will be others. For example, in the beginning of May, we'll host a seminar on the fight against illegal fishing in Réunion Island. But this one is particularly dear to my heart because we worked for a long time, first with our colleagues from Australia, which handed over, let's say, the network to us, and also with the Sea Turtle Study and Discovery Center in Réunion. I would like to thank them very much for all the energy and efforts they put in the network, with the newsletter and with the meetings we'll have in the coming today and in the coming months. And it's an example of the expertise that we have in Réunion Island in the field of biodiversity, but also it's a big asset also for the economy of our member countries, and this initiative is very welcome. So I would like to thank you all, to thank the International Whale Commission for their participation, and I would like to wish you a very successful and interesting meeting.
Many thanks to the IORA and Mr. Rama for these welcome remarks and for their support in reviving the network. This network is coordinated by France since 2023 with the help of Quietude team represented by Mrs. 𝗂𝗓𝗄𝗏𝗏, who will present to you our mission. But before this presentation, here are some logistic elements. If you have any question during the video conference, please write them in the chat. We will have a dedicated time at the end of the presentation to answer. Thank you all for your interest and enjoy the presentation.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello, I'm delighted to welcome you to this first video conference of the IORA Sustainable Whale and Dolphin Watching Network. I am 𝗂𝗓𝗄𝗏𝗏 Land Project Manager within the Sea Turtles Study and Discovery Center in Réunion Island, and I will propose you a few minutes to present you some general information about the network, its history, its purpose, and the coordination of this network. So first of all, regarding its history and the background, so as we are all aware, whale and dolphin watching tourism has seen exponential growth in recent years. And while this provides an incredible opportunity for economic and development and environmental awareness, it also comes with a lot of challenges. Poor regulation and irresponsible practices create significant risks to the cetaceans population we seek to admire and protect. In response to these challenges, a workshop was organized in February 2016 in Colombo, Sri Lanka, And this workshop, carried out thanks to Australia and in partnership with the International Whaling Commission and Murdoch University, forged the desire to set up this network of exchanges around this topic. Following this workshop, the initiative received the approval of the Committee of Senior Officials of the IORA in May 2016, and it was agreed in October 2017 that the Secretariat of the IORA will take the lead in developing the network. The network, therefore, was created within the core group on tourism related to the focus area on blue economy. The main objective of the network, as Mrs. Rory told about, it's first to promote the regional cooperation in sustainable whale and dolphin watching tourism, including through information sharing, capacity building, and access to expertise. And second, to ensure the economic, social, and environmental sustainability of whale and dolphin watching tourism in the region. And three, to facilitate regional cooperation between IORA agencies. But within these broad ambitions, it has been agreed to initially focus on the sharing of information, capacity building, and access to expertise. Regarding the rules for participation in this network, membership is open to all IORA member states on a voluntary basis. The network has a formal list of contacts bringing together national focal points nominated by each of the states to the IORA and possibly other members officially nominated to the Secretariat. But the network is committed to working in a collaborative approach and therefore to enabling the commitment of the private sector, of local communities, governments, and other stakeholders linked to the whale watching activity. This is why exchanges within the network are also open to other participants than just the list of formal contacts, and makes it possible to expand the professional networking opportunities. For the coordination takes place in turns between members countries on a voluntary basis. The Australian government has played a voluntary coordination role since the network's inception. And since June 2022, this is France that has volunteered to ensure the continuation of this mission. And as you know, France not being in the Indian Ocean, it is the French island of Réunion, located between Madagascar and Mauritius, which is its representative. What has been achieved since the establishment of the network, a wide work to encourage IORA country to nominate a focal point for the network in each member states. Also to develop profiles by country in the International Handbook on whale watching developed by the International Whaling Commission, to promote the involvement of member states in the two organizations, both IORA and IWC. And if it was not already the case, to promote the development of guidelines for whale watching and or existing international guidelines. Two newsletters dedicated to the network were also published in 2019 and 2020. And as you can already see, important partnership work has been put in place with the International Whaling Commission around this subject. In 2022, started this transition phase of the coordination. And after identifying local stakeholders involved in cetaceans and whale watching to provide technical support to the French diplomacy, we have been working on proposing concrete actions to reinstating communication within the network. Réunion Island is happy to exchange with the IORA network and be able to contribute to the sharing of information and expertise. Each whale watching territory presents often very different contexts, but also must face pretty common issues. And France is no exception for that. It had several mainland and overseas territories under the same national flag, but with various local specificities. In Réunion Island, here are some elements allowing you to have an overview of the whale watching situation and Quietude. So the activity began its development at the beginning of the 20s. In 2003, we had 3 operators in place, and in 2019, 52 operators were counted, offering sea trips, including whale watching. And the last report in 2023 talked about 48 operators offering the whale watching, plus 32 not offering it directly, but practicing it through their activity at sea. We have a charter of good practices that was put in place by the NGO 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗆 and local stakeholders in 2009, 2010, and that has been enforced by local decree in 2019. The specificity of the territory is to be one of the few still practicing swim with cetaceans. This activity is now carried out based on standardized practices detailed in our local regulation. It is still very popular and continues to grow significantly. Please note that this activity is mostly not recommended or prohibited in other French territories. And it obviously raises issues of animal disturbance and swimmers' safety. Another specificity of Réunion Island is that the whale and dolphin watching area is located in immediate proximity to the main harbor of the island, very, very close to the coast, less than hundreds of meters from the shore, in the same area where all the nautical activities take place. So we face, therefore, a big challenge of cohabitation, as you can see on the pictures. And finally, our activity is supervised by state services and control units since the regulations have been enforced. And a non-sworn team, of which I'm in charge, was set up in 2017. So we are dedicated to supporting the activity and the different stakeholders involved, with the main goal of promoting the peace of the animals at sea. So our dedicated team therefore has the missions of monitoring the evolution of the local activity and practices, to raise awareness at sea and on land, to gather and coordinate exchanges between the different stakeholders, also to develop new support tools such as e-learning, labels, etc., to propose management tools adapted to our local conditions, and also to create and to participate in exchange networks on the subject on a national scale, but also today within the IORA in supporting the territory in its role engaged with the Secretariat. So our mission to support the coordination of the network began therefore a few months ago. We worked to organize and relaunch exchanges within the network with the help of a dedicated email address. This allowed us to send you the last newsletter published at the end of 2023, last year. And finally, to organize this first video conference, which allows us to welcome the IWC to share with us its work and its broad and expert vision on the subject. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Anne-Emmanuelle, for this presentation and for your dedication to whale and dolphin watching in Réunion Island, which is unique compared to the other French territories and probably to the other territories within the Indian Ocean. As a reminder, the IWC, established in 1946, is known as the global body responsible for the management of whaling and the conservation of whales around the world. Today, the IWC has 88 member countries. Their work program now also includes bycatch and entanglement, ship strikes, ocean noise, pollution and debris, and sustainable whale watching. Now, let's give the floor to our main speaker from the IWC, Mrs. 𝗱𝗶𝘃𝗵𝗿𝗆.
Thank you, Jonathan. You're going to show my slides, right, I think? Thank you. So thank you very much for joining me today. As Jonathan said, I'm Elizabeth Campbell. I'm the program officer from the International Whaling Commission. Joining me online is Imogen Webster. She's the lead for program development. And today we wanted to share a little of our work on whale watching. Next slide, please. So first, I will briefly give an introduction on the organization, then whale watching in the IWC, and finally, some ideas that we have on how we can hopefully work together now that the network has been reinstated. Next. So like Jonathan said, the International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling was signed in 1946. We originally had 50 nations, and we were established as the global body that was responsible for management of whaling and the conservation of whales. And the aim of the organization is stated there on the slide: to provide for the proper conservation of whale stocks and thus make possible the orderly development of the whaling industry. So the convention established the commission, it established the secretariat where Imogen and I work. And importantly, it was one of the first pieces of international legislation to include a conservation mandate. Today, the IWC has 88 member countries. The mandate hasn't changed, but there are different interpretations of the mandate, or should we say kind of different focuses. Some of us focus more on the conservation of whale stock, while others focus more on the second part of the mandate, which is the orderly development of the whaling industry. But overall, the aim of the IWC has not changed, and that's conservation of whales. There is a significant expansion in our work program. We also include now anthropogenic threats such as bycatch, ship strikes, marine debris, and sustainable whale watching, which we will go into a bit more detail today. So this chart shows the overall structure of the organization within the IWC. In the middle, we can see the commission that's supported by the secretariat, and the bureau, which is a group of 7 IWC country members that are elected every 2 years. We then, on the bottom, see the committees. Today, we're going to focus, next please, on the 2, one previous. There we go, thank you. The SE is the oldest committee where experts meet to discuss the latest research in incitation science. They're also responsible for providing scientific advice to the commission, and a lot of their work is also estimating populations of whales, looking at their structure and their health, that is then used for other committees like the Aboriginal Subsistence Whaling. The Conservation Committee that we can see on the right is a lot younger. It was established about 20 years ago, and its primary goal was to strengthen the conservation agenda of the IWC. Here we can see the process within the IWC. So on the left side, we see kind of the scientific part of it, where the scientists work in the scientific committee, and they explore all types of cetacean science, ecosystem threats, and then provide that to either the Conservation Committee and to the Commission. The Conservation Committee has members from industry, from the government, from kind of more the general public. And they take the research from the SC and look at ways to manage threats. They look at different ways, like different systems of policies and governance to see what could work better for different contracting members. And then the third block is the policy block, where we can look at the Commission and the countries that are members of the IWC. We also include the indigenous peoples that are part of the IWC there. And they take advice from both of the committees in order to make decisions that are reflected in their nations. The decisions that the Commission makes are then recorded in a database of recommendations. And then we expect information back from our members via the Scientific Committee or the Conservation Committee through the conservation reports, to the voluntary conservation reports or the national progress reports. That way we can kind of look at the effectiveness of IWC's work and also share kind of the successes and the failures within the Commission. So why did IWC start to look at whale watching? And it's really because it just kind of become this, it became a huge industry that was starting to have serious impacts. So a study prepared by the International Fund for Animal Welfare estimated that in 2008, about 13 million people went on whale watching trips. That generated about $2 billion in tourism revenue, and it employed 13,000 people worldwide. So it's definitely an economic opportunity for countries around the world. In addition to it bringing in money, it can also have an educational element. It can be kind of a way to foster appreciation for wildlife. It can be a way to raise awareness of whales and conservation. It's also a great place to do research. It can be a platform for opportunity for collection of data on distribution, habitat use, and a lot of companies worldwide have started photo ID studies that help scientists see where dolphins are or if they're residents, for example. However, the size and the rapid growth of the industry has kind of led to a continuing debate on whether it's sustainable. It's usually kind of sold or perceived as an eco-friendly venture, but there are a lot of studies that show that whale watching, if it's not conducted responsibly, can have potential to disturb or decrease the long-term survival of animals that are being watched. Some effects, for example, are differences or changes in whale behavior, migratory patterns, breeding cycles. And it's important to note that these are stressors in addition to those many serious threats that whales and dolphins are already facing, like bycatch and entanglement and ship strikes. So on the right of the slide, we can see two examples. The one on the top is a dorsal fin that's been injured by a propeller. And on the bottom, we can see a clear example of harassment. You have 3 or 4 boats, people swimming in the water, and that's a lot of stress for one or a group of individuals that are swimming. Next, please. So now that we know how the IWC works and kind of the good and bad sides of whale watching, we can focus on how we work or how our projects are in whale watching. So the Scientific Committee has a small group that was established in 1975, and that's called the Subcommittee on Whale Watching. And the Conservation Committee also has a group that was established a lot more recently in 2010. And both of these work together to achieve sustainable whale watching in the hope that whales can exist in harmony with the whale watching industry. And both of these follow the whale watching strategic plan. These are objectives and actions that are kind of set out every 10 years to hopefully develop science and methods that can help our contracting members develop their whale watching industries in their countries in a sustainable way. Next, thank you. So for the subcommittee in the Scientific Committee, the main goal is research and data collection. So I've included 3 examples of actions that are part of the current strategic plan. And I think this is a good way to see kind of how both groups differentiate. So the SC is charged with looking at ways to study the potential impacts on populations that whale watching might have. They're also looking at ways to kind of develop data collection programs so that the industry can then use them on their platforms, on their vessels, or on land. And then they're also looking at ways in which the IWC can integrate their social research with ecological research. If we look at the Conservation Committee's Standing Working Group, they take the latest research from the SC and then they focus on their primary goal, which is capacity building and international collaboration. So these are also actions from the strategic plan, and you can see that the Conservation Committee focuses on capacity building, developing training tools, working with key partners, and priority organizations. So this figure illustrates just some of the many key actors and stakeholders in the whale watching business. I think it's important to clarify that the IWC does not serve as a regulatory role. Instead, we serve as an advisor, a facilitator. So it's important for us to partner and collaborate with others that can either amplify our message, they can expand it, or they can have a regulatory role and implement those better practices that we advise. So both the SC and the CC collaborate with other organizations such as 𝗱𝗶𝘃𝗵𝗿𝗆, 𝗱𝗶𝘃𝗵𝗃, CMS, IORA, as well as industry reps to develop an inclusive plan and be sure that our outputs are also inclusive. So for whale watching, we worked with the groups that are in red blocks on that slide to develop our strategic plan. We wanted to be sure that our strategic plan had something for every stakeholder in the whale watching industry, and that our products are useful for scientists, but also to managers and to operators. So here are a couple of workshops that we had with operators, managers, and scientists in the last decade where we went over the strategic plan. And today I wanted to show you two products that came from the IWC, but both products had input from these stakeholders as well. So the first one is the IWC General Principles for Whale Watching. These were first developed in 1996, and then we just updated them last two years ago. They incorporate advice from scientists, conservation practitioners, and experienced policymakers. And the goal was to have one document that summarized all of the recommended steps for the whale watching industry, and in that way avoid adverse impacts. So the principles are divided in three parts: management of the development of the industry, some considerations on the platform, and then finally how interactions with cetaceans should occur. So in this slide, we're seeing a couple of examples. The document isn't very long, so I recommend anyone who's interested to have a look, but I've included a couple of the principles. So the first one is implement as appropriate measures to regulate platform, numbers and size, activity, frequency, and length of exposure in encounters with individuals or groups of whales. The second one is looking more at the way in which we approach the cetacean. So travel at slow speeds, less than 10 knots, in areas of known cetacean presence whenever possible. Next slide, thank you. Ideally, whale watching would also consider kind of its educational responsibilities. So the general principles recommends that the person who's in charge of the activity, the person who's leading the activity, should also know a lot about the species that they're looking at, so be very knowledgeable. And if they're knowledgeable, they'll also be able to recognize any kind of stress signal that the animal might be sending. The second one that is on the slide is also about education, but it's about educating the tourist on the whale watching trip. So ideally, companies would have either presentations, written materials that they could give out to the tourists so that the participant leaves the experience not only seeing an animal, but also learning more about them. The principles are being used with the second product, and that is the IWC CMS Whale Watching Handbook. It's designed to support managers, regulators, operators, anyone interested in whale watching. It's a flexible and evolving tool that's currently available in Spanish, English, and French. And it has educational resources, and we also have a page with the latest scientific information. Specifically for government managers, we think it's useful. We have a downloadable, examples of regulations that you can download and that you can use if you're updating or developing your country regulations. It also has information on capacity building tools and fact sheets for different species. Okay, so now. So now you can see on the screen some examples of the content that the Whale Watching Handbook has. Next slide.
Sorry for the delay, we have some issue.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll just wait. Sorry, I think my video was a little too long.
Sorry all for the delay, we had some technical issues. It's going to work in a few seconds.
There we go. Thank you so much, Jonathan. So the handbook has an interactive map, and you can select a country for a profile. Each profile has a list of species that you can observe when you're on whale watching trips. We also have the regulations and guidelines from the countries that are listed there, and research on whale and dolphin watching. We also have a list of case studies from different countries. These are reviewed by both committees, the Scientific and Conservation Committee, before we include them in the handbook. And we have kind of a variety of case studies. Some show regulations, stories on how industries were developed, or specific issues that were worked on or overcome. These are 3 examples from the Indian Ocean region. We have a case study from Kenya, where fishers explain how they turned to whale watching as an alternative livelihood. The second one is from India, Chilika Lagoon, where the community kind of put together the industry and set it up. And the third one looks at the way regulations kind of were enacted and then later updated to improve compliance in a specific part of Victoria in Australia. So before looking at ways in which we can collaborate, I wanted to just very quickly show some stats on the whale watching handbook. We have about 500 individual users every day that visit the whale watching handbook, about 15,000 users per month. And those users come from 233 countries. We've seen that in the past couple of years, we've been working hard to kind of increase the content, but also reach users in 2 new regions, and that's Asia and Latin America. So we've been working hard to kind of grow content and also contacts in those areas. Australia has always featured in the top 10 users since the Whale Watching Handbook was launched. And in the past years, we have noticed that India and Sri Lanka have now entered the top 10 regular users. So just to end my presentation today, I wanted to share ways in which we thought we could work together. The first one is maybe one that you already had while you were listening to my presentation, and that's adding content to the Whale Watching Handbook. If you didn't see your country on the list that has profiles, it would be great to add it. If you have a case study from your region that you think would be a good fit, we'd also be happy to review it and look at it. We're also always looking for volunteers to translate part of the Whale Watching Handbook. We currently have it in French, English, and Spanish, but it would be great if we could at least get some sections of the handbook in different languages. Maybe the fact sheets or the downloadable resources would be extra helpful. Second, IWC has a lot of experience in capacity building. We regularly organize workshops to teach specific areas like in bycatch, strandings, and entanglement response. And it's something that we're looking to develop specifically in whale watching. It would be great if we could find partners where we can maybe organize a workshop and look at ways in which we can kind of teach or share the resources that we have, like the principles or the handbook. And finally, we are trying to expand in the Indian Ocean area, so contacts would be helpful. This could be whale watching companies, scientists that you know that are working on whale watching, managers, anyone that's really involved in any aspect of the industry. It would be great if we could get to know them. I think IWC has different levels of participation, so it can be kind of once in a while, or it could be even kind of at the maximum level of participation, which is being a member of a standing working group and participating in the complete process of the IWC. So if that's something that you know of or you might be interested in, I think Imogen and I would be happy to discuss that further. So thank you very much, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Elisabeth. Indeed, in this context of a growing number of whale watchers, it appears essential to collaborate using participatory and multi-territorial tools to share the experiences of territories and to draw inspiration from each of them to face these global challenges. Now we will move on the Q&A time. If you have any question, you can write it in the chat and we will read it and the presenters can answer it. So if there is no question, please do not hesitate to contact either the coordination team or one of the speakers for further information. We have one question from 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗆𝗆𝘆 from the NGO 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗶𝘃𝗶𝗄. What is the IWC's position on swimming with cetacean?
So in general, we don't recommend it, and I'll let Imogen add anything if she can think of. But we in general don't recommend it. There are some guidelines that we've been working on with CMS that kind of give guidance to industries where they already have that implemented to kind of reduce any risk or impact that they might have. But in general, it's not something that we recommend.
And we have another question about capacity building. Do you have some guideline addressing MPA manager?
Capacity building for MPA managers. Not that I can think of right now, but I'm sure we can find some. I think we could also, are you thinking about the marine mammal twinning, Imogen? Yeah.
I think we do work with a lot of a different organization that is more specific for marine mammals and good creation or management of marine protected areas. So while we don't deal directly with marine protected areas, but we certainly have a lot of involvement in developing management tools. So if you did have specific questions about that, we can certainly get you in contact with the correct people or find the answers and send them on to you that way as well. So there is, perhaps we should highlight that there is an online tool available where you can actually input the information about your marine protected area and what the management is currently like. And it will actually give you a result that shows you what areas you could work on to increase the management that's specifically for marine mammals. So we can probably put the link to that in the chat if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you. There is other questions or no? I think it's finished. So there is something. Okay, there is some other questions. Do you know if Mozambique, as a country, as a county, is part of IWC? With marine mammals tourism booming, it will be great to get them involved as regulations are very poor out of MPA, sorry.
So I'm just checking. Yeah, so Mozambique isn't an IWC member. That doesn't mean that it can't be part of the marine, the whale watching handbook, and that doesn't mean it can't have any capacity building. We still work with members. We still work with countries that aren't contracting members. So maybe we can get in contact with Angie and think of ways in which we can work together.
So there is some remarks from Whale and Dolphin from the NGO 𝗀𝗶𝗃𝗶𝗃𝗲𝗃. It might be interesting to include this IORA whale watching network as part of Indocet, the regional network of cetaceans in the southwestern Indian Ocean.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Okay, so I think it's finished. In conclusion, we are delighted to have been able to hold this first video conference and to have had the privilege of welcoming the IWC for this occasion. This meeting was a pilot phase. There is a second meeting scheduled in July, where we hope to see all of you. So if you are interested in being the next speaker, please contact us using the mail below. As you can see, the concept of Whale O'Clock is to offer relatively short meetings with a thematic focus and to be repeated regularly. This is to make it easier for many people as possible to take part in the often busy schedules. We invite you to feel free to comment on this proposed format using the QR code so that it can evolve and meet your expectation as closely as possible. Do not forget to consult the last newsletter of the network with this QR code as well. And now the IORA will finish with the concluding remarks. Thanks all for your participation.
Okay. Thank you, CDTM.
Not
Second.
properly. There is some echoes.
Thank you, CDTM, and thank you, Ms. Campbell, for the very informative presentation on the international whale watching structures, as well as how it interacts with the relevant stakeholders. Much appreciation for underlying that the IWC is an advisory body that can assist countries and stakeholders within the tourism sector to set up its individual or local whale watching networks. And thank you for as well. Thank you for expanding on the avenues available for future collaborations. As a final note, I want to thank the participants and the organizers. Good day.
So thank you all and have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
and see you at the next meeting. Okay.
Will do.